The Flash, issue 11,
Oof.
legacy number 811, Cy Spurrier writing with Ramon Perez on the art, and Matt's been solo on this for a while. And I just want to point out as well that I did see Matt tweet this week that he had no idea what happened in Flash. So, good luck.
I've become the Job meme where I've made a huge mistake.
Matt, you can drop it. It's fine.
Yeah, I know. I hate the sunk cost fallacy. Because
It's only been, 11 issues.
yeah, and an annual, and, probably a special. Anyways, I'll get to the thing that I liked in this, right? So the story is ongoing, but it's the Archangels talking to Wally.
I remember it being Archangels, Matt.
Archangels, sorry. They're drawn like the biblical angels, right? Anyways, so the Archangels are talking to Wally, and essentially, from what I gather, if I understand what Spurrier's putting down, is that the Speed Force is time given another dimension, right? So not only do, the Flashes move fast, but being that they can jump multiverses, timelines, all this other stuff, they are messing with time. And when they mess with time, it messes up what the Archangels want to do, which, as they see as time as a poison, essentially. So what do you got to do? You got to bleed out the poison that they need to kill time so they can reset and they can observe everything from the beginning.
Do you know what I'm realizing as I'm hearing you say this is that I'm really looking forward to a Flash again, where the writer isn't obsessed with reinventing the rules of the Speed Force and how it manipulates things. I just want a Flash where they're just a Flash. They have connections to the Speed Force, and then that's all they ever talk about as far as Speed Force goes. And it's just about dealing with the problems that are presented to them via the villains or whatever's going on Earth.
I believe your phrase is Speed Force, bro. I don't need to explain.
Yes.
I feel I miss it when it's there. I'm fine with it just being this force that binds the Flash family. It's the thing they have in common.
It's one thing to use it as a crutch so you don't have to explain something. It's another thing when you've got a run like this, and this is kind of partly why I dropped it, is the entire plot is revolving around how it's been manipulated by these other beings and how it's this different dimension or the way time's wonky with it or some shit.
And so the Stillness, which were those figures, those explorers that we saw early on, right? They were the Archangels' first attempt to kill the Speed Force and to kill time. Because once they saw that it was starting to go off and create branch realities and all this other, it became too big. So they introduced the Stillness, which is the concept of standing still, I guess, of non-movement, if you will. And so one side of the story is Wally going through this essentially drug trip with the Archangels, and they're basically telling him
that's what this book needed. It's some psychedelic segments.
And that he's essentially nothing. They need him to be an empty vessel because he's going to be the bullet that kills time. And the other part of the story is the Flash family with the older Wade in the offset with the time cops, essentially. Them being like, we need to get to Wally because Wally is the key to this because he's who brings us all together. And so there is this really nice moment with all of them, right? It's Jay, it's Barry, it's Wallace, and Bart, and all these guys being like, we need Wally back. And so for all the stuff that the Archangels are telling Wally that he is nothing, he's just this empty vessel, it's like, well, no, they missed their family member, which I thought was really nice. And then it's that Stillness character who was introduced in one of those events. But he has the tie to the Speed Force. He was in the theater and all that other stuff. Points out that the Flash family is looking at stuff at binary as like fast and still when it's not that they're all different dots on the same spectrum. And that through that's how they're going to be able to get through to Wally. And the art takes a turn here where as Wally starts running to the point where the Archangels want him to, it almost looks like Riley Rosmo art. But he starts to get elongated, almost like in 2001 when they go through, the void and whatnot. It starts pulling, at him, and all that stuff. And as he's heading towards that, we get Max Mercury talking about like he had a vision, and this vision was this buffalo, and that he takes that's what the Speed Force is. It's just this living entity, and this living entity looks like it has hunters surrounding it. I'm taking that those are the Archangels, right? And that the speedsters, even though they're using time in the Speed Force and all this stuff to its detriment, it likes being able to interact with them. They're almost like parasites that it can experience, because through them it can experience emotion, and it can feel things. And again, that's why Wally has become this crux figure, is that he feels all of this more because he is so central. And so through the end, the Flash family goes and finds all the villains that are operating, keeping Wally on his own as Wally starts running for this end of time. And the issue ends up with Linda basically saying like, she'll always be there, for Wally, because essentially he's her constant and she's his constant. And then it ends with Wally stopping right before this point, to be continued. So again, that's what I think happened. I'm not 100% sure. That's me thinking about it since Wednesday when I read it. The part of it that I did like was when Max Mercury, of all the characters, right? He's the deeply philosophical one that looks at the Speed Force more like a religion than anything. That he sees it as this buffalo that is trying to coexist with the speedsters, essentially acting as parasites. But in a perfect parasitic relationship, right? The parasite doesn't kill its host, so they're both bringing something to the symbiotic here, and that instead of parasites, they are more like symbiotes, and that they're getting stuff from each other. So that's what I did like. The deep philosophical cosmic horror aspect of this, with the stillness reaching into Wally's brain, and trying to form this empty vessel to turn it into a bullet to kill time. Again, it's a lot, man. So this is probably my last issue of Flash, because I don't know if I can do this again. I again, sunk costs and all of that stuff. I want to know where this goes, just out of deep curiosity.
I mean,
I don't know if I can talk about it by myself, though. This is a heavy lift.
Well, I'm not jumping back in, I'll tell you that.
I know
right
you're
now.
not.
Besides, you've also got like 10 new books launching between October and November at this point.
True. I just like you said earlier, I miss when the Flash book was a little bit more simple, right?
I mean, I think a lot of writers are guilty of doing it a bit much. Like even ones that I've liked have been guilty of doing it a bit much. Williamson definitely went into that, with all the different forces in a really annoying way. I think this, though, like, it just kept getting more and more complex. Instead of being wrapped up by the end of the first arc so we could do something else, it was like, no. This is a long-running story.
The concept of this cosmic horror type being, this entity wanting to use Wally, is something that I understand. Like, I understand how that story would work. I just don't like the execution of it. And again, it gets deep into all these terms that I have to dig deep to remember. The Archangels and the stillness and what they represent and all of this other stuff. And it's a lot. And I just, but when it hits, Spurrier is really good at playing with those emotions and seeing the Flash family coalesce around the idea of Wally not being there and why he matters so much. He hits there. Also, you brought up the Sage and the Strength Force. They bring those up a little bit too when they're talking about the Spectrum. But I put that out of my brain because I don't want to think about those ever again. But yeah, I don't know if I can keep doing this solo, because it's heavy to try to take care of all this while it goes. So yeah. So that's it. The art, though, does a lot of fun things with the way, you know, kind of the psychedelic nature of the Arc Angles and Wally. You put that against the more normal style art of the Flash family in the Time Cop, you know, station, essentially. That's a real good balance. So because of that balance, and even though I don't exactly understand all that I just told you, I'm gonna give this a 7.5.